Despite the huge efforts required to end the reign of the hostile Oda family, Nariko and her imperial forces now faced a far greater challenge. The conquering Uesugi clan had turned its eyes on the capital, pushed by the fall of the Oda to accelerate their plans to take Kyoto and make their own lord the national shogun. And with Nariko now almost always away from the capital, the business of running the realm had already begun to fall into the hands of others. So she isn't to return? No. Gifu's defences will surely keep her troops occupied for a while, and she is unlikely to leave them to it. She's too attached to the men she leads. If only I'd known about her, I could have trained all this out of her long ago. But I think it's been part of why she has come so far, my lady. But she won't go further. You wouldn't understand. Of course, my lady. Have you any further orders? Yes. I wanted to discuss this plan with my daughter, but I think, given the situation, we should go ahead regardless. We need to begin deconstructing the Asakura clan from the inside. Lord Asakura is in a weak position. Every day this war continues without their clan gaining anything, he gets weaker. I need you to be spreading these seeds of doubt he has gifted us. And what methods do you authorize? Well, I think you'll find that I'm not permitted to authorize anything. But that aside, if you were to independently achieve a collapse of the Asakura using monies I lent to you for other purposes, the specific methods would hardly be under question. I understand, Your Majesty. And on an unrelated note, have you ever noticed that a clan always seems to fall into chaos when the leader has no heir? Fortunate that noble Lord Asakura has his children in Imahama to cement his dynasty. Without them, almost anyone could usurp his power. It would be very tempting for those petty lords to turn against each other. But that's just the way of it, I suppose, don't you think? Wise and true observations are these, Your Majesty. I will consider them further on my travels as a roaming musician. Very good. I'm sure your music will make a great many people happy. Be sure to return when your songs are all played out, and I shall introduce you to my daughter. Unmarried girls like her can be very desperate, if you understand me. Of course. Thank you, Your Majesty. Very kind. I'll set off at once. Hello and welcome back to Nariko's Treasure. Here at Gifu Castle, Nariko and her party are just finishing up an assault against the lightly defended fortifications. We were able to overcome the Uesugi force inside this castle quite easily. We lost about 10 troops to the enemy's 50 or so, so we'll now be able to capture it from the Uesugi just as this war starts. We'll give it over to Lord Hatano, who also controls Negashima Fortress to the south, somewhat nearby. So we're basically here trying to make the fight over something that's in the Uesugi's original domain rather than ours, to minimize the chances of us actually losing something in this conflict, which is quite a high chance considering the strength of the Uesugi at this point, and the fact that combined with the Asakura we can be attacked from so many directions. We are very strategically fragmented right now, so we're going to be running all over the place. Now I get news that a village I'm unfamiliar with is under attack, so I started looking around my territory trying to work out where this actually was, because I knew it wasn't anywhere near the capital region because I didn't recognize the name. It's actually up here near Kanazawa. So the Uesugi are already coming in to attack our territory up there, which is very annoying, hard to defend because it's cut off by the Asakura forces. And on the way up there to investigate, I actually saw the Asakura main force gathering there near Ichodani Castle. But we also get another report then of an attack at a village called Kobe, which is in our core territory over to the west there, so the Asakura being very annoying to us by attacking while we're also distracted by attacks over here in the northeast part of our territory. So overall, it looks like we're going to be frantically moving about to have any chance of stopping all these simultaneous attacks. Now, I discovered an Uesugi party raiding the village and moved towards it. I also get news there that the Uesugi are now attacking Kanazawa, the main city in the region. The Uesugi force here is over 200 men. The Uesugi control so much territory that their lords will have a lot of fiefs among them, meaning they'll probably have big armies because they have a lot of land from which to draw troops. So that's going to be a downside for us. So we engage this guy in battle despite our numerical inferiority. He advances in good order, being careful to skirmish with us as he advances, which I'm happy to do because our army is very balanced towards skirmishers. It's unbalanced really. We rely on the enemy being mostly defeated before the fight gets started to have a chance because we have very few actual infantry troops at the front there. So the enemy start charging towards us, but some of those forces are actually already routing. Their cavalry make an attack on our flank that's not going to do very much because it just gets bogged down right away. Nariko helping out to take down the riders, especially after their horses are knocked down. They are nice and vulnerable. So after that, I ordered the entire army to just charge into the enemy, as it looked like they were kind of charging at us, but I realize now they're actually just routing in a strange direction. They're kind of trying to get behind us to get off the field. Meanwhile, another group in the background there running in the correct direction for a rout. So actually the battle was at that point over. We lost 2 men to defeat that enemy army, and over 60 of the enemy got away without even fighting there. Very sneaky. So I moved up towards Kanazawa and observed that there are absolutely loads of Uesugi forces besieging it. It's going to be very hard to break that. And we also get news that we're under attack at Ibaraki. This is a village near Kyoto, and the importance of this is that this is one of Nariko's personal fiefs. So she is actually responsible for its defense. So now that it's under attack, she technically should go back to defend it. But the priorities here need to be weighed up, basically. We need to try and weaken the army attacking Kanazawa, because if it can't be stopped at Kanazawa, it probably can't be stopped anywhere until it gets right into the core of our territory. So this is a nice chance to try and fight with it. We draw one of the lords away, Murakami. He wants to come and fight with us in a separate field battle to the siege battle, which is great, because this will give us a chance to defeat him. The game gives us options that imply we're going to lose. The game gives you options to surrender or sacrifice troops to escape if it thinks you're not going to win the battle, but we're going to fight it anyway and try and prove it otherwise. Once again, the enemy advancing in good order, using skirmishes against us. You can see some of our troops dropping around Nariko as she tries to return fire. We've set up on the side of a river, which means although the enemy are going to be above us, they're going to be slowed down as they make their final approach, and you can see the effect that's having on these cavalry. They try and charge at us, but they just have no speed because they just come out the shallows of the water where they can't run, meaning that basically the cavalry attack does very little. It gets good penetration by just sort of running through our troops and not engaging them, but once it's in there and amidst our army, they're all going to be slowly brought down. So the main bulk of their samurai and officers will be killed in that cavalry attack. And now I'm going to order the army to charge into the river to stop the enemy before they get out of it. Ideally I wanted to fight them on the bank, so I had that slight hill advantage, but I charged too early. And the enemy have a lot of skirmishers on the other side of the river. I ended up just leaving those guys alone to come in and rear attack the infantry. Our forces mostly managed to break through the enemy's infantry, especially with the help from our cavalry, who are also attacking from the sides. But now we have to take out all these skirmishers who have a great position to shoot our men as we climb up the opposite riverbank, so the river going to work for the enemy's favor now. Luckily we have big numerical advantage and we still have some cavalry to play with, so we can just slash about the enemy ranks, and Nariko going to help out quite a lot here, not necessarily by doing all that much damage, but by just being there, being a distraction. You can see the enemies kind of aggro onto her, they keep turning to look at her and being distracted, hence get destroyed by the swordsmen coming up behind them. So that all works well in the end, but it was a scrappy battle with 70 casualties including the wounded. That is enough that we probably can't fight again. Oh yeah, they say things are much simpler up in Echigo. Those Uesugi came up with a way of making your brother and your son be the same person. Much easier to deal with. Yep. I heard they got the... what? Oh, everything in order? Yes, your majesty. All in order, your majesty. Ease off, she's only human. Do not ease off. Marry. I apologize, your majesty. Very disrespectful. Go muck the horses for the rest of the day. Yes, ma'am. Good health, your majesty. I don't recognize him. He's one of our troops. You don't need to know them all. Neither do you. What were you doing? Just relaxing? I'm allowed to talk to the Eshigaru, aren't I? Hard to say. Hard to say? What's hard to say? You would do better to build your authority as their superior, not their equal. Is that you, Kaj? Didn't take you for caring that much about principles of nobility. I don't. Maybe they have their uses. Yes, like getting yourself off over how low people will bow to you. Don't be like that. Only if you don't be like that. Now, if you'll excuse me, Your Majesty, I'm off to help a friend of mine with the horses. Let me know if there's another battle or something. Following that battle, another Uesugi lord came over to fight. Perhaps they thought they're trying to attack me while I'm weak, because I am down a lot of troops thanks to the wounds from the last fight. But even with the numerical disadvantage that this gives me, I have an excellent battlefield where the terrain completely favours my army and my specific army composition. The Uesugi troops are annihilated as they have to run across a series of hills and up a final hill to get to us. They lose most of their melee infantry attempting to do this. Their skirmishers try and set up on a hill to our flank, but now they're simply outnumbered by my skirmishers, so they'll be cut down at range, perhaps even before my melee troops manage to reach them. Our cavalry too are going to have an easy time with that. So the battle was very easily won, with I think only 1 or 2 casualties. I then managed to draw out another lord to come and do the same thing. Also received another reminder that we're still being attacked back in the area around Kyoto, so we do need to come away from Kanazawa whenever we can. But this is being very effective. I may be able to save Kanazawa without having to wait to fight in the siege battle or face the enemy's overwhelming numbers by just taking out all these small groups of troops one at a time, and it goes pretty well. Here goes yet another Uesugi army running up to us, taking heavy losses and routing, and then we simply countercharge, Nariko leading the charge here to smash some enemy skirmishers who were apparently unintimidated by the loss of the rest of their army. They will now be completely swamped by our heavy melee troops and dispatched, so that was an easy victory. 3 killed to defeat another enemy army of almost 100 troops. So that's all good news. This exchange is fantastic, and we'll take this lord prisoner as well to prevent him from coming back anytime soon. So we're going to have a more long-term weakening effect on the Uesugi here, which is very nice, of course. So now I actually went over to Kanazawa. I snuck into the town and sold some things off and then moved away. It looked like the garrison would now be able to resist that siege for a while, so I'm going to leave them to it. And we get more and more bad news about attacks occurring to the south. Kennoji's under attack, and they're attacking more villages around Kyoto. We definitely need to get back and finally do what we should have been doing the whole time, really, defending our core regions. As we arrive, we see the siege at Kannoji and go to attack the enemy lord doing that siege. He is defeated with no events, basically. We just ran over his very small force, and then I moved on over to Kyoto, where the Asakura main force is currently fighting with some of our merchants outside the city. This force is gigantic and will be very difficult for us to take down. Luckily, part of it actually split off to try and attack Lord Ashida, who was rushing to get into the safety of the city. So we can now team up with Ashida to attack Rokkoku here. We have a big numerical advantage. They are going to, as usual, throw their cavalry away early in the fight, and the lord himself will probably be defeated in this battle. But they did do it a bit better than a lot of the other lords, because you can see the infantry attack kind of coincided with the arrival of the cavalry. So that's the most effective way to do your cavalry charge. Still not quite effective enough though, because their infantry attacking in such a spread out and loose way that as our troops come forwards, they just annihilate them by surrounding all the individual troops, and the ones at the back just say nope, we're not even going to take part in the fight, and the battle comes to an end. So we start chasing them down, but it's a bit confusing because many of my own troops are also Asakura troops, and they look exactly the same. So you see Nariko trying to find an actual enemy to attack in that rout phase, and it's over soon enough anyway. And we managed to get over 100 kills, well over 100 kills on the enemy side for only 2 killed on our side. So absolutely amazing battle that's reduced the strength of the Asakura main force, but of course still leaves it very powerful. So we can't really attack it right now, but we have to do something, and the most I can do at short notice is go to the castle and just convince Ashida to take what limited forces he does have to join me in a very difficult battle against the Asakura. With him on our side, we'll manage to get to roughly half the strength of the enemy force, which will give us some chance against them. One other thing I can do while I'm here is order an emissary to be sent to the Uesugi clan to ask for a truce. They may wish to go into truce since we've already taken territory from them and defeated many of their armies. They might actually cool off the war and go back to whatever they were doing before. And it's actually Nagako who's primarily responsible for that. She is sent as the emissary to go and try and convince Lord Uesugi. And until she comes back, we will be occupied with fighting the Asakura main force. They have double our strength here, but we have to win. The forces of the enemy are drawn up. We have but to stamp them out in one motion and their bid for the capital will be ended. You make it sound easy, Yoshio-kun. Seems the stress has made you very familiar. I'll take charge if you like, Your Majesty. Don't listen to a word he says. This is the decisive moment. If you are there leading our forces in this battle, the symbolism of our victory will be magnified. It must be the Empress that wins this battle, not just our army. And how exactly do we win? You've planned out the details of our celebration, apparently, but how do we not get overwhelmed? We've done this sort of thing before, Nariko. Simple way to overcome a big baddie is to take them by surprise. Yes, but what strength do we have unknown to them? Well, we ate dinner more recently than they did. I need something real. We're in trouble here. Wait, Your Majesty. He comes across as a fool, but he's being serious. Their army has been raiding our forces all day, while ours have only marched from billets in the capital. The advantage of the stomach is truly ours. But only for a little while longer. We gotta hit them right now. The men are up for it, I promised you. A night attack? It's not our strength. Even less is it theirs. If we catch them unprepared by advancing suddenly, especially after they see we've started making camp, then we will fare much better than in a pitched battle in the morning. And think of the embarrassment they'll face to be challenged so brazenly. If they lose mere minutes after contacting us, it will shatter their whole clan's morale. They say that Lord Asakura is already stirring up trouble by trying to adopt his vassals all of a sudden. A striking defeat here could release his grip on the clan and make peace an option. Worth the risk, don't you think, Your Majesty? I still don't know what will happen if we attack. But I know what will happen if we wait, and that's worth any risk to avoid. Okay, tell everyone to stop whatever they're doing and assemble on my banner before the hour is up. Battle gear only. In the dead of night, Nariko forms up her army to face the Asakura. The Asakura scrambling to get something together to stop her here as they realise her intent. So we are going to be fighting a night battle here, which reduces the effectiveness of our skirmishers, which is how our army is primarily balanced to fight, meaning we are going to be doing a little bit worse than normal just on general terms. We won't be able to get as many kills before the fight gets started, but we'll still have to do our best here. The enemy's cavalry making a powerful attack at the start of the battle like usual, and causing a lot of disruption. They got really far into our lines and outflanked us quite well. They've got a lot of cavalry to do it with as well, so this battle is going to take a while as we try to clear them out. Unfortunately for the Asakura though, that cavalry attack doesn't quite happen at the right time. It was too early, so now after that disruption our lines are able to reform before the enemy's infantry attack can come in and we can get things started properly for this battle. So the cavalry not used to their full potential there. Nariko going to switch flanks to go and join our own cavalry here on the right, where they are forced to engage with a detachment of the enemy's infantry who actually came specifically around the flank to attack the cavalry. So we'll just try and clear that up, because what we really need to do in this battle is get the cavalry behind the enemy and surround the main body of their infantry, since it severely outnumbers ours. So we need to grind them from all sides and break their morale and inflict heavy damage on them in terms of actual kills, but by making sure that they're always being attacked from multiple sides as much as possible, reduce the enemy's chances to defend against the attacks from our troops or cavalry. And that was pretty much as effective as intended. We broke through the first wave of the enemy's infantry quite quickly, and so I was able to bring the cavalry around to attack the enemy's skirmishers. They'd all gathered up on a hill just to the side of the battle, and because they're in a kind of blob, not proper lines, they were ruining their own potential there, which is quite good for us, but it makes it hard to attack them in melee, because now it's going to be absolute chaos as we try and break into this wall of bodies and destroy the more lightly armed skirmishing troops using our heavy cavalry and the infantry once they arrive. Nariko taking full part in this fight, using a sword from horseback where we can make rapid attacks at close range, and getting stuck in, taking a lot of hits herself with her heavy armor and the limited armor on her horse basically allows her to deflect and shake off most of the damage there, and soon that skirmish blob is entirely annihilated by the arrival of our infantry and the work of our cavalry done already. So that is very nice. So I look over to the hill and see another wave of Asakura troops coming. They have so many troops, they basically get multiple armies worth that just come on once the first army is defeated. So This next wave is going to want to try and exploit the damage done by the first attacks. We've already lost half of our troops in this battle. I'm rapidly trying to reform up what we have to face the oncoming charge to minimize the damage it's going to do. Nariko is going to take the cavalry out onto the flank because we can lead them around for another rear attack here. The enemy don't have cavalry and we do, and we're going to exploit this advantage. I'll lead a few horsemen away from the fight, order them to charge, and their vector now will take them right into the back of the enemy. A few enemies were distracted out to try and stop that charge. They're just going to be run right through, and now we arrive at the battle when it's basically already won because our heavy infantry were able to just beat back the enemy, and the survivors starting to run away now, and that is not going to work for them because we still have that cavalry. A couple of soldiers here gang up to try and take on Nariko. When she's isolated, she's able to block the attacks and escape with just a little bit of damage, and now more troops swarming over this position will help her out. She takes a bit of revenge by cutting down on one of the assailants there. One more narrow escape from that spearman, and now the battle's pretty much over. Our troops will finish off the enemies as they flee, but we didn't actually quite get all of them, as we'll see in a second. So it's a victory for our forces. We've won this extremely decisive battle. The losses on our side were extreme, though. We took well over 100 casualties with about 20 dead. So our party completely incapacitated for now. Our allies' casualties not so high. The allies was Lord Ishida and a caravan of about 50 troops or so. But overall, they didn't do so badly. It seems Nariko's own troops were primarily taking part in the fight there. The enemy side completely annihilated, over 300 killed and perhaps 50 more casualties. So we're forced into another battle because some enemies survived and did not surrender, so the fight continues. It's a group of about 14 skirmishers. This is a situation where it'd be perfect to just charge the enemy with cavalry, but it turned out all our cavalry were too wounded to take part in the fight anymore, so it was just Nariko on horseback, so we had to do a much less effective infantry charge, which would allow the enemy to shoot us as we approached. It was of course a night battle, making it a little bit better to do something like that, and Nariko providing distractions herself to make it nice and easy. So that little sub-battle then comes to an end. The second phase of the fight is over, and we only had one more wounded. The enemy forces wiped out. So with that, the Asakura main force is truly destroyed. We can replenish our dead from captured prisoners, and now we'll look forward to this advantage we'll gain in the war.
What of our lord? Resting at the shrine ahead. The Imperials were too damaged to chase much further. He will be safe.
I thought for a while there that he had fallen.
You thought it? Or you hoped it?
What are you saying?
You know what I mean. We both wanted this war to end before now, and today we are vindicated. Were Lord Asakura to fall, his line would be ended, and his stubbornness shown to be punished.
Perhaps the spirits do not will it, but I see the poetry in what you say.
But even alive, we shall have our day now. After what he just did, he will be forced to admit defeat and apologize to the Treasured Empress.
Forced, you say? I think not. I rather think he will simply see the dead on his hands as even more reason why he must win.
Well, I will not take any more of my people to war on account of his defects of character, and I doubt many others will disagree with me.
Indeed, you're right. If he continues the war, then his mandate to rule will have been truly stripped away. But the question of who else stands to replace him remains.
Well, I think everyone has ideas on that matter. Give it time. There can be debate, quietly. Our first priority is to get us out of this war, be it with our lord at the points of our own swords or not.
After the battle, I took our forces west towards Kamioka because it was under attack by further Asakura forces. Unfortunately, they completed the destruction of the village just before I arrived, so that's going to majorly reduce my income there. We chased the lord responsible, Ogasawara, off into Ukita territory. Didn't feel like chasing him forever because I wanted to, as quickly as possible, go and find Great Lord Asakura and propose peace. Now that we've basically wiped out their main field army, they're in a very weak position and may simply agree to peace to save themselves, and then we can go on to continue the war with the Uesugi. I have to sell one of Uesugi's prisoners back to them. You can refuse to sell prisoners back, but it's regarded as a dishonorable act and you're punished for that. So I went to check at Imahama to see if Great Lord Asakura was there. He was not, unfortunately. He could be in any of the Asakura-controlled territories because he was defeated in battle, and that basically makes the lord just respawn somewhere else in their own territory to recover. ended up deciding to go north, basically because of this. We can see the Uesugi are attacking our territories up near Kanazawa again, well, probably still attacking them from last time really, because we never cleared them out properly. So as I go that way, we see Uesugi and Asakura armies wandering around. None of them are big enough to fight Nariko, so they just scatter and try to get out the way, hiding there in Ichodani Castle, and actually leading me, as it turns out, to Great Lord Asakura, because he was also inside. So we can formally request that he comes out to speak with us. And now, head of one faction to another, we can ask for a peace deal, but he has these outrageous demands. He wants Nagashima Fortress and over 100,000 mon. We can't accept it strategically, or even just morally. We can't set the precedent that that is an acceptable peace deal, especially because they're losing this war. More news that we're being attacked. We'll have to just go and deal with these attacks and try and think of something to do with the Asakura. They're being so stubborn, it's not helping us at all. Lord Kitajo here meets us for the first time, but he refuses to talk at all about the possibility of defecting, so that's a shame. We'll have to engage him in battle. So he's going to come in with this very ineffective cavalry charge at the start. They basically split their cavalry up into a couple of waves, so a few cavalry came at the start on the road, and that's going to be super ineffective. Nariko basically showing off by just halting them from a stationary position as they ride up to our lines. Some more cavalry came along with their infantry, but not going to do all that much to us because we can just snipe them down. The infantry is going to be a bit of a worry though, because they do outnumber us in this fight, but in the open as they are, they're going to take a lot of skirmish fire, which is great for us, and we now have the definitive cavalry advantage. You can see my cav charging down from the right there into the blobby infantry of the enemy, which we can't really see from here. I'm pretty much hoping my combined infantry and cavalry attack will do the business, and you can see in the far background there, loads of enemies routing away. Many of them probably didn't even fight there, so basically it did go very well despite us not really taking part in the fight. Only 9 wounded to defeat nearly 150, I think even more than that, perhaps, enemy troops there, so a very good show. I noticed though that Kanazawa is actually under attack right now. They're doing a siege assault on it and they're about to win. Nariko can rush over and somehow sneak through the siege lines to get inside the castle and turn the battle in our favour, which we'll have a look at next time. Matching the persistence of her enemies, Nariko was able to drive the last-ditch efforts by the Asakura into the ground. Doing so earned her plenty of respect from the droves of young Ronin who had been flooding the Kinai region, looking for a chance to further their dedication to Bushido by participating in the constant battles. These able fighters could also allow fiefs already drained of manpower by decades of war to feel somewhat secure from invasion, but not entirely. All over the imperial fiefdoms, villages were being burned and the common people made into refugees, fleeing to the strongholds and cities that had thus far remained unchallenged. But as the Uesugi pressed into the Echukaga region, even these forts no longer seemed safe. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. The war with the Uesugi will continue, and we'll be receiving some very good news and some very bad news regarding the actions of other clans in the next episode of Nariko's Treasure.